cognitive bandwidth that is eroded by having to make too many decisions in one day, and that how people of color, black people to be specific, have to make so many more decisions than white people who are socioeconomically better. And because of that erosion of bandwidth that's taking place every couple of seconds, when we get to the workplace, we often will ask the question, why is it that white people seem to perform better or get these roles more easily? And what he was explaining from a behavioral scientist perspective is that unless you're an absolutely brilliant black person, if you're an average black person, you're always going to lag behind your white counterparts, because you're making up to 10,000 more decisions in a day than they are. So they're able to preserve their cognitive bandwidth and preserve and direct that for the decisions that they need to make. So here's an example. He used the example of when a company decides that they are going to introduce a new insurance product, right? So let's assume, not an insurance product. Let's talk about a loan, right? So a company decides and they say, okay, guys, we're going to introduce this new product. It's a loan, and you can come in. But to access the loan, you must come into the branch. You must fill in the paperwork, and then we can see if you qualify or not. Now, for the black person looking at that, who wants the loan, the first, and we're thinking black person in a context like South Africa, right? You're probably thinking, where do I live relative to that place? Do I actually have a car? If I don't have a car, do I have a taxi? Which is the best taxi rank that I need to go to? How long do I need to get there to make provision for the fact that there might be a queue at the rank? If there is a queue at the rank, how long is that queue likely to take? How much more time does that mean I have to take? Now, in addition to that, because I'm black, I'm likely more junior. Can I get time off work to do that? Do I have to then balance that off with the leave days that I do have? If I don't have leave days, how do I wing the situation so that I can go and get this loan because I really, really need it? And do I have transport to actually get to work afterwards, given the fact that taxis usually, peak hours are mornings, evenings, when people are going to work and people are coming back from work. So, and this was before Uber and all of those things, guys, when Elder was speaking about these things. And he says, by the time you decide that you're going to take that insurance product, the likelihood, and this is so shocking, the likelihood that you're going to choose a product that's not good for you is higher than a person who just needs to wake up and think, oh, that was a really interesting insurance product. Let me go online. Let me upload my documents. Let me apply and then get on with my day. And then you're going to work with the same person, the taxi person and the person who's had to just go online and upload their documents and wait for the response on email whether they've qualified for the loan or not. Now, the performance of those two people is not going to be the same, because the cognitive bandwidth of the person who's made 1,000 more decisions has been eroded as the day has unfolded, relative to the cognitive bandwidth of the person who's been able to preserve that bandwidth so that they're making better decisions when it matters most. I heard that for the first time in 2016. I have never forgotten that lesson. I've never forgotten that lesson. And that's why I'm so excited to go to the School of Behavioral Science, because those are the kind of things that they're thinking about, and how does it then impact some of the things that we struggle with, and go, we've given this woman the same opportunity as this man in the business. Why is she not performing well? She's not performing because before anything else, she still needs to think the kids, who's looking after them, which kid, who's fetching food, and. And so it's so important to be mindful of your cognitive bandwidth and how you are preserving it, or the extent to which it is being eroded. And the reason why I also think that's so powerful is that a lot of us have privilege. So I count myself as a person who's now very privileged. I wasn't privileged before. I didn't grow up in privilege. But today, I am very, very privileged today. And I have, because of my privilege, I have the ability to put in guardrails to really, really preserve my cognitive bandwidth. So I made this example. And this used to trigger me. It doesn't trigger me anymore. You know, when my mom died, I was kind of like responsible for everything because I was like the eldest. And so I was, you know, making decisions on pretty much everything. My dad was distraught. And I remember I was in the middle of changing the casket that had come with the funeral policy because my dad didn't like it and he just thought his wife deserved something better. So we were together, you know, choosing the casket. And then my phone rings and one of my aunts is saying to me, should we buy the beef Norox or the oxtail Norox? Now, you know, I'll say Norox, but you know, I mean Kno, but you know what I mean. We call it Norox, the stock cubes, right? And I just remember in that moment, I absolutely lost it. And I was like, I cannot be the person who has to make a decision about which casket my mom's going to be buried in and still also be the person who decides whether we are doing beef Norox or oxtail Norox. I don't have the space in my head to do that right now. And I think at the time, because my mom passed a year later after I met Elder, at the time, I still probably didn't have the language to express and articulate what I was feeling. And what I was feeling at that moment was that my cognitive bandwidth, Sindisiwe, was being eroded on something that wasn't important at the time. I do not have to be the person who makes the decision about the beef or the oxtail Norox. I don't have to make that decision. And so I'm using that as an example to maybe showcase or explain why I've released myself from making certain decisions, even in my own household. So for example, my helper does all the shopping. I don't want to have to choose to make the decision between Clover and what other brand of milk, because actually that's eroding my cognitive bandwidth. I need my brain to think about a lot of stuff that is just a lot more important than that. So I think my invitation to all of us is to think about what are the decisions that you're making on a daily basis, and then to interrogate whether you are eroding your cognitive bandwidth or whether you are preserving it, right? And just say, what are the things that I'm just not going to do? Yes, Peter, it's soft life. I'm fine with that. There are certain things I don't do, like I don't do grocery shopping. I don't cook every day. Gosh, my poor family, I probably cook once a month. And even then it's an occasion. I don't decide what my husband wears. There's just certain things that like, I'm not participating. I'm not participating. Because I think it's important to preserve this for big and important decisions. I will make a decision about where my husband and I go for dinner because I want it to be special, and I actually want to apply myself to that. I want to think about that. But to lay to your point, there's certain things where I'm like, Andizi, guys, Andizi, I'm not doing it. My dog, like, I'm not going to be thinking about when my dog needs a wash. No, we're not going to do that. Somebody else knows the schedule. They will come. They know what shampoo. They know what comb, what brush, what. They will do that. And I'm not going to be making that decision. I'm not going to making that decision. I don't have the bandwidth for that decision.